one of my mentors. It's not often that you get to meet a real master in a craft and a master in life. This man was one of the first, well, was the first black plumber to graduate from the local 68. At the time when he graduated from the local plumbers union, it was mainly a white majority ran trade, and it still is to this day. And I figured it would be great to have a master come on the podcast and give you his perspective on what it takes to put in those 10,000 hours and achieve excellence in a time where a lot of black men wasn't able to get skills, and still to this day, why do we still need skills in the black community? I would like to welcome Mr. DJ Benson Blanton to the podcast. How you doing, Mr. Blanton?
My pleasure to be here. I have been looking forward to this interview because you have expressed to me uh, your concerns about what I know.
Yes, sir.
And you all called it old school, but I don't call it old school. I'm saying go to school, learn something, and then utilize that.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
that's the
sir.
school that I recognize.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely. So, Mr. Blanton, I wanted to ask you. So, what was your upbringing like coming up from where you from? I know where you from, but could you tell the people where you from and what was your upbringing like?
I came from a city of Henderson, Texas. It's south. It's in East Texas, Northeast Texas, and my upbringing was, I guess, discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have as many restrictions as some of the kids when I was growing up, but my dad worked. He was in business for himself,
Mm-hmm.
and when I learned that being in business was for yourself is the way of life,
Mm-hmm.
then I went to school,
Mm-hmm.
learned a trade, and went into business for myself.
And what kind of business did your dad operate?
He had a mechanic business, but
Okay.
he didn't just work on people's cars just because it broke down.
Mm-hmm.
He worked in school districts.
Mm-hmm.
He worked on the principals, the teachers, automobiles.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a clientele that was supportive, so he could support his family.
Mm-hmm.
And finance was not the problem with
Mm-hmm.
how I was raised because he knew that he had to be responsible for those things to get revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So he chose to uh, do that business in that area at that time, and it wound up being quite successful for him.
And you said you was raised quite disciplined. What kind of discipline did your dad instill on you coming up?
Well, during the time I was growing up, there were kids just like they are today,
Mm-hmm.
but there were kids that he would tell you not to
Associate.
participate with or
Mm-hmm.
associate with
Mm-hmm.
because what you're being taught, you can be off track with what someone else is giving you.
And
So he kept me away from people that he thought would be a distraction to life.
and how was it? Did he keep you away? Was it word? If he said it, he meant it. Because I know, and when you say discipline, if you went, did you ever have a moment that you went against your dad's word, or you just knew better not to ever cross your dad in that manner?
My dad didn't discipline me like people look at discipline. He didn't whip me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, I was kind of privileged.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first car when I was 14 years old, paid for it with my own money.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there were things that I did, as I said, growing up, that provided me money even when I was 9, 10, 12 years old,
Mm-hmm.
that I made money.
Okay.
So, and if something went wrong or I didn't do anything that my dad asked me to do, he didn't take a belt stick a limb and discipline me, he would just probably just take my keys and say, "You can't go nowhere in 2 weeks."
Yeah.
And so those were
That was enough.
That was enough, and I mean, going through that discipline one or two times. If you went through it 2 times, that means you were kind of hard headed.
Because
The one time was good enough for
you
me.
was already so at 14 years old. You was already so independent as a young man. Him taking away some of your independence was enough for you.
It was enough for me.
Let me move this light over so I can get that light out your face.
Okay.
There you go. So after you came up with your dad and you knew from at 14 you wanted to be in business. How did you get from East Texas because you come from the country, right?
That is correct.
How did you come from East Texas down to Third Ward? I mean, not to Third Ward, down to Houston, and becoming a plumber, and becoming the first black plumber to graduate from the local 68 union.
What actually took place is that I went to Jarvis Christian College. That's where I went to college.
Okay.
And my major was biology.
I never knew this.
And the thing of it is that time that I spent in college, as far as learning biology, is probably with me today. It caused me to read and keep up with different things that takes place with medicine, with your body, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad gave me an ultimatum.
Mm-hmm.
He says, go to college and learn some sense, or get you a trade and learn some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose to take a trade because I saw what my cousins, my uncles, or everybody else that were in business, because everybody in my family were business people.
Mm-hmm.
They had business ranking as far as jobs is concerned.
Okay.
So I came to Houston because I had a cousin here, and I came here, made an application to go to work, and the application gave me a interview with Plumbers Local 68
Okay.
to go over and be a plumber.
Okay.
And I took that up and joined it, and from there I went ahead and got my license. From there, of getting my license, I went ahead and got my master license. And with my master license, I entered into business, which was my primary aim at the beginning.
So you already knew you had an endpoint at the beginning. So how was it you going to become just an apprentice plumber? And what was this, the 60s or the 70s?
This was the 60s, and it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. People didn't want you in the business. White people didn't want you in the business.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I can say about trying to learn, or with the intent to learn,
Mm-hmm.
when you have a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
people will help you.
Yes, sir.
And the people that were in my surrounding and saw what I was doing, they helped me. Although there was prejudice like everybody else, I encountered those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew my main objective was to get my license. There were people already in plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get your license, you can't do anything. Just give you a prime example. There are a lot of people can drive, but if you don't have a driver license, what's going to happen to you?
You're going to get a ticket if you ever get,
That
you're
is
gambling.
So I my main objective was to get my license.
Okay. Do you have, for people who maybe don't understand, like what is the example of an experience that you had to go through when you was in the local, coming up through the ranks?
Well, when you're around that type of surrounding, they put you in a category of being typical.
Mm-hmm.
The typical black, the one that came from the ghetto, the one that did this.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to keep you in that category.
Mm-hmm.
But I accelerated my career simply because when they had different pipes that came out,
Mm-hmm.
different techniques that came out,
Mm-hmm.
I read those things. And then when the manufacturer would come down
Mm-hmm.
to demonstrate, I was the one that was chosen to do the demonstrations for all of those new products that were coming out. And when I did that, then people start recognizing this is more than just a typical guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got through.
So your skill set you apart from your peers. It wasn't that you was just the only black plumber. You had a very unique skill set that most didn't have.
Right.
And so after, okay, you went into business. How was it with you first going into the avenues of starting your own business? Did you go in pretty successful? Did people have, like you said, that when you had a purpose, people will have your back and people will help you? How did people help you, or how did you navigate to going into this, and what was the road like for you going into business early?
Well, the road was hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard now
Yeah.
because the reluctance of utilizing you is very, it's closed
Mm-hmm.
until you are proven. And I didn't have anything to prove. I had my license, and when I worked at the trade, I became good at that trade. The jobs that I was doing, I ran those jobs. I told people where to put them, how to put things in.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I was doing while I was doing that for someone else, I was writing down that time that it took them to put those things in.
Mm-hmm.
Because the estimating classes and things that you take when you're going through the school is not the same thing that takes place in the field.
Okay.
So what I did, I made me a catalog of how long it would take me to do groundwork,
Mm-hmm.
how long to set carriers. Although they had books that give you man hours to do those things, I read those also.
Yeah.
But
So you basically knew the street, the field knowledge, and the book knowledge as well.
I got the technical knowledge along with the field knowledge.
And I remember you telling me one day, you was telling me a lesson, like you had a lot of people go to bat for you because when you was in school and different trainings, you had an advanced knowledge to the point that the people that was your classmates or people that was in the field with you, you would go knock out some of their work for them, or do a little test for them, because later on you knew you was going to go into business, and these was going to be people that you can use later.
Well, what happened is that everybody is not skillful.
Mm-hmm.
And the classes that we were taking, those guys were not skillful either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were there, but they didn't have the skill. So I would do my project and finish it and set it to the side, and I would help 2 or 3 more other guys that's in the class do their projects so they could pass also.
Okay.
And when that happened, it causes them to look at me differently again. Now, here again, we are still in a society where it was predominantly white,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't like the type of knowledge that I had acquired and how I did things.
Mm-hmm.
So the typical thing to do is to run him out of town,
Yeah.
and this is what happened to a lot of people. But those guys that I helped protected me and made sure that nothing would happen to me because they wanted to do something to me,
Mm-hmm.
but they wouldn't let them.
Mm-hmm.
And those same guys that gave me that protection at that time, they also helped me when I went into business. They helped me with my takeoff, my material takeoff, my estimating. And we had to typically do the same type of schooling.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take one part of the building, they do a takeoff. I would take another part and do the takeoff. And we put that package together, and I would put it out for bid.
Mm-hmm.
And we pretty much knew what the dollars amounts should be. And here again, I utilized the technical part of the manuals that for man hours versus the field knowledge.
Yeah.
And when I realized that I could bid that project at book cost and maybe drop 1 or 2%, I would get those projects. Where
Mhm.
everybody else was trying to make money, I made a business.
You made a business.
That's correct.
So you wasn't more so chasing the dollar. You was more so chasing your brand, chasing your business to grow.
I made it grow, and you can't grow if you're not working.
Yeah, and how long did it take for your business to go from a small business to start getting commercial contracts?
As you go into business, you're only able to do small projects anyway,
Mm-hmm.
simply because you don't have the finance to do it. After I started getting business and looking at larger projects, I took the profit that I would make on one job and put it into a larger job. To give you a prime example, a job is worth $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
It cost me $300 worth of material. It cost me $300 worth of labor. Well, my overhead would be,
600.
600.
Mm-hmm.
But out of that 600, you have to have a space. You got to have a truck. All that's have to come out of your overhead. So I have to learn how to figure all that.
Mm-hmm.
And once I figured out I had a profit, I would take that profit and start my next job.
Mm.
So it takes you a long time to have money
Yeah.
because although you're making profit, it's not big enough for the next project. And I started out maybe probably just doing like a $5,000-$6,000 job.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done jobs, up to $1 million.
Okay.
You know,
And how was it for you getting those jobs up to $1 million? It's still you still being a black plumber, a black business owner as well, not just a plumber. Did you ever have to run across people with these government contracts or bids, or people try to play you in any kind of way or convey you in any kind of way with you taking on 7-figure jobs?
well, the first thing they're going to say to you, have you ever done $1 million project?
Mm-hmm.
I told him no. But I got 4 jobs over 300,000. That's over $1 million. So what you mean I can't do $1 million job?
Yeah.
So what I knew, if I could do $1 million plus in work, I could do $1 million job.
Yeah.
And that was the mindset that I had when I first got my $1 million project.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, the project that I signed for that $1 million, I got assigned another project that same week from the same general contractor for another $600,000. So I picked up about $1.7 million in 2 contracts.
And that's deep. That's deep, and people don't understand the severity of getting $1 million contracts
Right.
in a major city like Houston, where it's fierce competition for things like this. So when you getting these contracts, did these come by performance? Did these come by word of mouth, or did these come by relationships? How were you able to get in line? Because I know how the bidding system work. You in today's time, it looked like it's mainly off good relationships after you start building that work relationship.
Good old boy system it took place then.
Mm-hmm.
It still takes place today. But we had requirements that had to be made as far as minority participation.
Mm.
And when they say that you have to have minority participation, they say, well, where are they? We don't have anybody that can do these size jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to be a member of the AGC at that particular time. And one of the letters that came out from the AGC was not how to do business with minorities.
Mm.
I went to the director of AGC and said, well, why am I a part of this organization to do business? And these kind of letters are coming out from
the
members.
organization. Mm-hmm.
And he made an announcement. His name was Pat Kiley. I don't mind distributing that name to anybody in America.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Pat Kiley, and he said, we have a minority in this business, and he's quite capable of doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
That following week, I had more work that I can put on a table.
Yeah.
So, first of all, it's a blessing to be in that position,
Mm-hmm.
but it all stems from what you learn or what you came from at the beginning. My intent was to do business.
Mm-hmm.
And after you start doing business, the thing that you have to learn is that you have to man a job, you have to put material on the job, you have to complete it, and you have to want to that work.
Mm-hmm.
Do all of those things, and guess what comes after that? You get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I got paid.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So when you got here in Houston and you start getting these nice sized jobs and doing things like that, and at this time this might be 70s, 80s. Were there other did you have a group of entrepreneurs? Were there other inspiring entrepreneurs or any one that mentored you along the way to help you keep your mind? Because I know later on you got into golfing and things like that, and I know how golfing was for you and coming up, going out there on the course. That I know that was another whole another realm where they didn't accept blacks as well. So did you have anybody mentoring you and just that physical space to get you into to different things? Because the things that you were doing, being an entrepreneur, playing golf, that was something different from most people at that time. A lot of people couldn't step out, and even to this day, a lot of people can't step out and start a business. A lot of people can't step out and go to a golf course and learn that skill. A lot of people can't be independent men anymore in this society. So, did you have anybody around you, a strong core around you, or were you always just the alpha leader of your pack?
It's funny about life. Um, you can surround yourself with people that's going to talk to you, and you can surround yourself with people that's going to help you move on.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you have to have a direction to where you want to go. I had a very good influence from a golfer that used to caddy on the PGA Tour by the name of Felton Davis.
Mm-hmm.
He was very responsible for looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at things from the percentage part. 100%, 10 out of 100, 90 out of 100.
Mm-hmm.
Choose the 99 out of 100 to choose your path.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have that influence every time I had to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to have that decision in my mind. What is my percentage of getting there?
What's the risk and reward ratio?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But let me say something about the golf part. Golf is a very interesting game.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't utilize golf to play it to become a pro.
Yes, sir.
I utilize it as being a relief line from business.
Okay.
Because business put a lot of pressure on you. And the only way for you to live is to have some relief line so when you go home you can rest at night.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
They go home with all of the stress of business. They go home with the stress of work every day. And when they get home, that's why they don't have a home. Who's going to put up with you like that?
Yeah.
So I had a relief line.
Yeah.
So when I got home, I didn't worry about why I didn't get this project today or worry about some situation that was not controllable.
Yeah.
I could think of it, but I left all of that at business.
Mm-hmm.
When I went home, I was at home.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important. You really can't focus on the things that you can't control. And I was gonna say, Mr. Blanton, a lot of people that's watching this interview would be like, this is a very fine man. Mr. Blanton is a highly eloquent, highly intelligent, well-spoken man, but he is a pit bull. So I want to know, Mr. Blanton, how did people in the era where you came up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s era of doing business with Blanton Plumbing, how was that era and you being, see, a lot of people, you have to be a real tough individual to deal with a man like Mr. Blanton, because you got to know, if you come through this plumbing, when you come through the plumbing ranks, plumbing is a real physical, real tough-minded trade. When you out there in the field, it's not how the rest of society. It's like a whole different work society, living in the plumbing world. So how did people react to you being such a tough master plumber, such a tough businessman, such a tough man? Were people able to deal with you, or did your skills and relationships and all, or did you have people in place to deal with before they got to you? How did that go?
First of all, you have to know your direction.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to achieve those things, you got to acquire some things.
Mm-hmm.
Just give you a example. If someone gave me some directions to go to Dallas
Mm-hmm.
and told me to take 45, if I took 45 and I went south, I wouldn't be going to Dallas.
Yeah.
So the thing that you learn, you take 45 and take 45 north,
Mm-hmm.
and you will go into Dallas. You will run into Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I always analyze my avenues.
Mm-hmm.
I always tried to think before I got there what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with people, they can see you have a direction.
Mm.
If they can, some of them will help you. Not all of them, but some will help you. There are some that will not.
Mm-hmm.
I was just blessed to the point where people helped me do what I wanted to do and for me to achieve my goal.
Mm-hmm. When you being a business owner and owning a plumbing company, and how did you keep and retain? Because one of the hardest things for a tradesman, especially a black tradesman outside of the union, is to keep your workers. How did you keep your workers versus dealing with the machine like the union? Somebody that can always keep them working, somebody that can always keep them paid. How did you keep your workers satisfied and keep your business going for 30 years? How long were you in business, Mr. Blanton?
I was in business for 40 years.
How were you able to keep employees and keep your business going for 40 years?
The thing of it is that in this trade and in this business, there are people that are not accepted. There are people that are accepted. I was very good at choosing mindsets. I could see a guy's skill.
Mm-hmm.
I could see how he laid out his work,
Mm-hmm.
whether he was going to be successful or not in installing what he needed to install.
Mm-hmm.
At the time that I started in the business, and even at the time that I ended my business, I only had three black guys that came through my business and wound up being plumbers.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to the Hispanics. They were kicked around too.
Yeah.
And what I did, I got those guys, put them on a program,
Mm-hmm.
gave them insurance,
Mm-hmm.
gave them something that they couldn't, provide for their family. The insurance that I had, I told them that they could go ahead and put their families on that insurance, but they would have to pay the additional part.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that they had never had before.
Mm-hmm.
And once you find a guy that want to take care of his family, he can take care of your business.
That's a good, once you can find a guy that can take care of his family, that you can take care of his family, he'll take care of your business.
That is correct.
And Mr. Blanton, me and my business partner had to learn the hard way, because from another guy that we used to rent one of our business locations out back when we was at the office, Mr. Riley said, man, because me and my business partner Quentin, we had this vision that we was just gonna be able to work with our people, and Mr. Riley said that don't work in this society today. So I just want to know, how was it you was in business and only 3 blacks were able to graduate and stay with you through business? What was the problem? What was the reoccurring problem? Because I seen it myself with me doing business, but I think it's important that we try to work together, but sometimes when we try to come together and work together, that can be the most difficult thing.
I was not proud of that ratio.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was a lot of guys just couldn't hang.
Yeah, and you tough.
And I could see it.
Yeah.
I look at your potential as you work. As I am paying you for X amount of skills, I look at how far you can go later.
Mm-hmm.
What you can become
Mm-hmm.
from apprentice all the way through as a journeyman plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was not of a certain skill set, it's kind of like you were looking for this job when you got this one.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mr. Blanton wanted this. He wanted to see blacks and all minorities getting trades because when I first met Mr. Blanton, he's actually my business partner neighbor. When I first met him, I told him I wanted to get me a trade, and he wants more black people to start getting trades and learn how to use their hands and skills. And what do you think the importance of us as my generation, and whoever watching this video, what is the importance of getting a skill, Mr. Blanton? Why is that so important?
Well, first of all, a skill will provide you a living.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a lot of people look at the dollars
Mm-hmm.
that it takes to live.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the guy that goes to school for 4 years, and when he comes out with that diploma,
Mm-hmm.
how much in debt he is for that diploma.
Mm-hmm.
You look at him going to a trade school
Mm-hmm.
in 5 years, and he has a way of making a living for himself and for his family.
No debt.
No debt.
No debt.
Which one makes sense?
That's right. So why do you think, what changed in this society where we went to less skills and just go to college? Why do you think that changed? Do you think we should revert back to more men getting skills? And because I think...
Definitely.
Yes, sir.
Definitely. I mean, if you look at how many guys that are plumbers on a 10-story building,
Mm-hmm.
look at how many people we have 50-story buildings in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
You look how many plumbers are on that building. Definitely get you a skill.
Mm-hmm.
The image of this big office and big car and all of these type of things, that percentage of people is very low.
Mm-hmm.
But look at how many people that's putting plumbing in.
They need that office to be built.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes more skill to do that than it is for that guy to that's going to be in that office.
Do you think skills like, because I feel like people that's working at office jobs behind computers, behind a desk, eventually I feel like artificial intelligence and technology will replace those jobs. Do you think in the future that technology will ever be specific enough to replace plumbing? I know how plumbing is. I don't think it will because it's too specific. It's too minute. It's too many crevices and cracks that you will have to climb through. But you being a master, I'm not a master. You being a master, do you think that trade will ever be replaced with technology?
No way.
Yeah.
It's a skill. And the only way that you become successful at it is to learn the skill.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when I was coming through school, there were guys that were not that skillful, but they were in the trade.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to those guys later on in life is that when a guy can put in 3 bathrooms in one day and he puts in one, that guy that's putting in 3 bathrooms will always have a job.
Mm-hmm.
That guy that's putting in one,
There's going to be another young guy come up that can put in 3.
That is correct.
Okay. So were you always the guy that was putting in 3 bathrooms versus putting in 1?
I was the one was telling them how to put it in. I
Yeah.
mean, even when I was working for someone.
You ran the projects.
I ran the project.
And that was unusual at that time.
That was highly unusual.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can give you the project, the Westwood Mall,
Mm-hmm.
out on Bisonette in 59.
Mm-hmm. You did that mall.
I was an apprentice at that time, and a guy said, "Man, I have read your resume, not resume, but I looked at what you've done in school."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You can lay out anything that takes place in this job,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to learn how to run a job." And I was a 3rd-year apprentice then. I was laying out everything that had to be done on his job. Come back and check with him. Let him see what I was doing. And he said, go out there and put it in. And guys would come to work, plumbers would come to work, and they say, who's going to lay out the work? Who's going to show us what to do? That guy said, well, Blanton is here. He's going to be the one to show you. And at that time, they said, I'm not working for that, you know what they use then. He said, well, you can just go on back to the hall, because he's going to be the one that's running this job.
Because your skill set was more important than what they had going on at the time.
That is correct. And that's how I learned how to run jobs.
To run for your own business.
Right. I learned how to put it in, and that's when I took the hours that they took them to install it. I wrote all that stuff down.
Took notes. So you was a student of the game at your. You was a student. You was a student in plumbing school, but you was a student on the job as well, and that's what advanced you into business when you went into business on your own.
That is correct.
And not to switch topics again, but I know you use golf only as a stress reliever, but I'm sure it was hurdles that you had to go through to get a nice golf. Because I seen your golf swing. Mr. Blanton got a pretty nice golf swing. So, is it I know that's a whole different world, but did golf ever intertwine with your business, or did you ever meet great relationships off golf? And do you think that it should be more young black men into golfing? And what would be the benefits for young black men getting in that?
Young black men should go into golf. But what I would say for golf is what I would say for anything. Black men need to utilize mentorship. They need to learn from someone else what to do, because they don't know. If you get the information, let someone tutor you to golf correctly, you can become very good at golf. I was good enough to advance in golf just like I did in plumbing. But plumbing was my livelihood, so I did that. But I did very well in golf.
And I know you, Mr. Davis, and the things that he had to go through to get on the golf course. And do you think it's gonna be, because I was talking with you the other day, and they was you were saying something about the Farmers Classic. Did that happen yet? When they was going?
That happened this past weekend. They had black pros on national TV on a PGA course, just to see how they could play or compete. The guy that won the tournament shot 73-75.
And that's pretty good, right?
That is very good in those conditions. Two things that takes place. That course was set up for 7,700 yards, which is a long course. And the temperature was 55, which means you can't compress your ball like you can when it's 85 or whatever. And that's an excellent score. That guy was rewarded a $30,000 check, an opportunity to play on 3 PGA tournaments.
That's, any of his choice?
Not of his choice.
Okay.
It's designated.
Okay.
But he has qualified to be there. And that's the other thing you want to mention with this interview. You have to qualify for things. Things just does not happen just because you exist. You have to qualify for things.
Yeah.
So you have to meet those quotas first.
And what do you when you say qualify, how does a person get qualified for things in life?
Well, those criteria are set up by somebody else.
Okay.
You just have to meet the criteria.
Okay. And is the game of golf still set up where it's real private and prejudiced and not open for everyone?
Sure it is. Those laws are already in place.
And that you think they will ever change or no?
You have to change them. Just like when I went into business, and I informed you about I was with the AGC and told them.
What's the AGC? So
AGC is the Association of General Contractors.
Okay. Are they still around now?
They are still around.
Okay.
when I informed them what this letter was about,
Okay.
someone went in and changed the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And well, he didn't change the rules. He suppressed the rules. Those rules are still in place.
Like unwritten rules now.
That's right.
So you gained the skill set. You became qualified, and once you got the skill set and you qualified, and the opportunity comes, you can change the rules if you qualify, got the skill set and the right opportunities, right conditions.
I won't say you can change the rules. You can
Soften
amend the rules so that you can qualify. Because here's the thing: they are always watching you. They're always looking at you. You just got to produce when they're watching you. And if you can do it when they're watching you, you can do it for a living. And that's what I went into business for. I went into business to make a living.
And another thing, so you did the business, you did golf. Another thing I know Mr. Blanton is big on. Every week, every other time I'm talking to Mr. Blanton, he tell me, "Oh, I'm gonna talk to you later. I gotta go out to the country." So, what is the importance of a man like your stature? What's the importance of land, Mr. Blanton? I know you from the country, you're a country boy, but what's the importance of land, Mr. Blanton?
First of all, God don't make any more of it. So you need to acquire all you can. Black people that had land years ago didn't know what to do with it. So they let it go.
Yeah.
Now they found out the importance of it, and some blacks are keeping land. But the thing about it is that here we go with the world.
Yeah.
They say, okay, well, your land is not important, but the royalties are. So they bought royalties from black people.
Yeah.
And stopped them from having the success of life.
Yeah.
Through those royalties at that time.
And what do you mean by royalties? Are you speaking mineral rights?
The mineral rights. They would come and let you plant all the peas, cotton, watermelons, anything you want on that land.
And if you strike oil,
they strike oil, they would be recipients of that oil and not you.
So you can cultivate, put the gate up, mend to the land, make sure it's nice and right. But if it's $1 million, $100 million under your land, they own it.
They own it when they get your mineral rights.
And that's big. That was big in the South, especially like Texas,
Sure,
Louisiana.
they stole it. People didn't know what they were selling. They said, well, I don't see nothing down there.
Yeah.
And they sold it for X amount of dollars, and which was not that much.
Did you know people at the time that
I know people have done so, yes.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy thing right there.
But I still got mine.
You still got yours, huh, Mr. Blanton? Mr. Blanton be out there shooting quails and hunting pigs. And
love it.
You love it, huh, Mr. Blanton?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Blanton. So, do you think us as a society, especially in the black community, do you think we gonna have a future in the trades and business and what's your outlook on the future from what you learned everything in life? What do you see the future? What's your outlook?
The future is mentorship. If you look at the majority society, you'll see their fathers, their son, their grandson. It's a step down business. Very little can go wrong with businesses like that. Because that father taught his son how to run that business. And from that son to the next generation, he's taught the same thing. We never owned anything. Like I said, the reason I was in business because my dad was in business. We didn't have businesses. So we worked for somebody else. We thought that was the success of working for somebody else. But you can own business and make a lot more money than you can just working for someone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think that's the key to everything right there. And that was the most important quote he said. You can make a lot more working owning your own business than working for somebody else. And I think we're gonna wrap this interview up. And I just want to tell Mr. Blanton, thank you for being a mentor for me. I got two young men in the room right here in this interview as well. Mr. Blanton is a shining light. He's a tough guy. Most people can't deal with Mr. Blanton, but he's a real man. So I just want to tell you thank you for coming by and giving us all this wisdom. And now you can, these words that you're going to share with the world is going to be mentorship for the whole world. So thank you for coming by and doing this interview with me. And subscribe, like, and drop a comment on the podcast. And everybody have a good day. Thank you, Mr. Blanton.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.